Thanks for tuning in and welcome back to the shop. This is our 2013 Mitsubishi Fuso FG and we're turning it into an overland camper. This is a really big heavy piece of butcher block. It's about 1.5 inches thick, 2 feet wide, and 6 feet high. And I'm about to turn it into our countertop. That's really heavy. Oh. So we've actually purchased 2 of these pieces of butcher block. One of them is going to be cut down to a 4-foot section that's going to be the countertop, and the 2-foot remaining section will be combined with the leftover, which will also be cut in half, to make the 2 tables that we have, one in either end of the habitat. Now I won't be making the other 2 tables until we get those areas of the camper done, so to start with we're just going to take this first piece and cut a 4-foot section off of it to turn into the counter. And that means we got to go down into the basement where there's enough space and the right tools.
I've covered the top surface with masking tape to protect it from the base of my saw. I've also clamped a guide on so I have something for the edge of my saw to ride along, and I put masking tape on the bottom to avoid any chunks from splintering off. The plan is to run my circular saw across while Krista stabilizes the offcut, which is supported on some roller stands. The first issue we ran into was starting out with a dead battery, and Krista found it a bit dusty. Round 2 went well for a few seconds, but something was causing the saw to bog down. Decided to try another battery, but that didn't seem to be the issue either. For round 3, I decided to try a thicker blade, as I wondered if this skinny wood blade was actually twisting. That didn't seem to help, and the cut definitely had gone off the line by about half a blade width. So after a few more attempts, I decided to scrap this whole approach and do what I should have done in the first place. With Krista supporting the overhanging end, this saw cut through it with absolutely 0 issues. This is what I should have done the first time. Time for a test fit to see if we cut it in the right spot.
Now that I know this fits, my next step is going to be to mark the edge here and the edge here, because what I'm going to end up doing is from here and all the way around the edge, I'm going to router just the sharp corner off, just so that we don't, if that was left as a sharp corner, I have a feeling it'll get dinged and damaged. As a rounded corner, it's not going to hurt as much if we hit it, and it's likely to last longer. So I got a little piece of tape here, I'm just going to mark where I need to stop routering. Do the same over here, right at the edge of the cupboard door. So I'm just going to round the edge off. I'll round these corners off too, just a little bit. Still want to keep the square and blocky look, but going to round it a little bit. With that, at the same time, I'm going to cut the hole for the sink. Although it may seem like this is the smallest sink in existence, it's actually not, because I had to return the last one because it was a little bit too small for the plates. My recommendation to you, if you're planning out a build, measure your plates before you pick your sink. We're going to be putting the sink 3 inches in from the front and 3 inches in from the end. And this is so that we can maximize the amount of counter space that we have and have everything within reasonable reach. So that is pretty much where the sink is going to go. Now, in order to come up with that location, I have gone underneath and looked where that framework is, because I need to make sure when I cut the hole, I'm not cutting through that steel support frame, and there's clearance for all of the fittings that hold the sink in place.
With the perimeter of the sink traced out onto the tape, I can measure in from each edge to where I need to cut. And with a little bit of a matching game, I can find a template to use for the radius of the corners. Looks like it might be this one.
Now that I've got it all traced out, I'm going to head back down into the basement and cut that very carefully with my jigsaw. Actually, before I can get the jigsaw in there, first I'm going to plunge cut each side with my circular saw, and then I'm going to connect each of the sides with my jigsaw.
Asking the saw to do a plunge cut seems to be a bit of a task, but I later figured out that if I moved very slightly forward as I pushed through, the saw had no problems at all, as you'll see in the third and fourth cuts.
Normally for something with a rounded corner like this, I'd be using the jigsaw for the whole thing. But because I need a spot to put the jigsaw blade through, and I want to reuse the center of this as a cutting board slash sink cover, I don't want to have any drill holes, and I want to keep the saw curve as small as possible. That's why I decided to do the plunge cuts here. Also, I have a feeling that the circular saw is going to be significantly faster than the jigsaw, even though I have a pretty aggressive blade on here.
For the fact that it's cutting through 2 inches of wood, I was actually quite impressed with how well the jigsaw performed. I was expecting it to be quite a bit slower. With the last cut completed, it's time to test fit the sink, and of course it fit perfectly. Next, I'm going to start rounding the corners off with my router. This is the same router we used on the panels when assembling the Habitat box. If you haven't seen that video, be sure to check it out. You can find it in the playlist for the whole build. I'm using a 1/4 inch radius rounding over bit. It's just enough radius to nicely knock the corners off. I'll stop the router halfway along the front edge so you can see the side-by-side difference of before and after. Here's the unfinished edge, and there's the transition point, just enough to take the corner off. With the last pass of the router wrapping up the front and side radius, we can move on to the next step. Krista, you're up.
Okay, it's time to finish our countertop. We have an unfinished Acacia butcher block countertop that we got at Home Depot. And I'm going to seal it with this food grade mineral oil. The process is pretty simple. You apply a coat of oil once a day for a week, once a week for a month, and then once every month or whenever it looks like it needs it. Look how the oil brings out the color. It's so pretty. Oh my gosh, I love this counter. It's going to look so good. I think it's going to be my favorite part of the entire camper. And it's so satisfying putting oil on wood. I just love it. This is how I oil my new cutting boards, and I like the results, so it's going to be great for the counter. I love this wood. I'm so glad we chose this over laminate. so pretty and cozy looking. We've taped it off, so hopefully the silicone will stick to the edges. Day 2. Yeah, this is looking really good. Still pretty oily. That should soak in. And this stuff's a bit thicker than the stuff I usually use. And it says you only need 2 coats. So I might not have to do it every day for a week. But we'll see how it looks. Just for comparison, that's the color of the wood with no oil. And then just a couple layers of clear oil, no stain. Makes it this really pretty color.
I really do like the look of all this coming together with the white cabinet doors, the black hardware, the wood countertop. I think once we get the stainless steel sink and our tap in there, it's really going to come together nicely. Now, there is still a little bit of an oily residue on the surface of the wood, so I'm not going to secure it to the cabinets or try and put the seal around the top yet. I'm going to give it a little bit more time to soak in. And I'm going to be using a polyurethane adhesive sealant around the top, not a silicone, to give us the best likelihood of that actually having a good adhesion to the wood. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, maybe consider subscribing. There's a lot more of this to come. If you've got any questions about anything that I've done in this video or any of the others, throw a comment in the section down below and I'll do what I can to answer it. And always remember to check out the video description to see any of the useful links that I've put there, which can help support this channel, which we really appreciate. Feel free to share the video around if you think it'll help someone. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.